everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we have another we're talking about sex again. If you guys haven't seen my previous video, I did a first kind of sex themed kind of video about a month ago, or maybe less than that, and that video was all about things that you don't necessarily learn in school, SRE, which is sex and relationship education, but I thought that you probably need to know when it's something that you're just not taught. So today is going to be something again that I think is not talked about enough. Like, people don't really talk about this type of thing just in general conversation, and it is about sex in long-term relationships. So if you guys are new here, you will not know that I am in a long-term relationship. Me and my partner have been together 9.5 years now, so it'll be 10 years in July. So we are definitely in the category of long-term relationship. We've been together since school, so we were basically each other's first. We've been our only sexual partners together, so we don't have any kind of like experience outside of each other. So that's something by itself that I could do another video on, and that, like, talking about sex when you've only ever been with one person, that would actually be really interesting to talk about. If you guys are interested in that, please comment and let me know, and I'll do a video on that, because I have a lot of opinions on it, and I think it's something that's kind of shamed now. I think it's kind of flipped. I think that it's kind of shamed rather than praised, which is kind of because everyone used to be like, you should only be with one person, but now I actually think I get a lot of stick for it. But anyway, that's a little bit of a side note. Today is about long-term relationships. So yeah, like I say, we've been in a long-term relationship, so I feel like I can speak a little bit about sex in a long-term relationship. The first thing I kind of want to say is I have a little bit of a different experience to what I imagine a lot of people is. Well, you know what, no, I don't think a lot of people, like, I don't think this is the case. I think a lot of people do struggle with it, but I have a bit of an issue with sex in terms of pain and what's the right word for it, natural lubrication, so dryness essentially. I have issues with that. So me and Jack kind of have a little bit more of a complicated sex life compared to what the typical or the best case scenario kind of thing would be. So that's the first thing I kind of want to say, that we probably have sex a lot less than a lot of people, but that isn't to say that we're wrong and that's an issue, because yeah, I just wanted to say that straight away, that we have a little bit of a different sex life. But I actually think that a lot of people have different sex life, and you shouldn't feel like that's wrong. Like, I often feel very, very bad about the fact that we don't have sex like a lot, because I can't. It's really painful for me, and because of that pain I've actually had some issues with sex just in itself, because when I think about sex I think about pain, not necessarily consciously, but I think I don't want to do it a lot because I know the pain that comes with it. So I think I feel really, really guilty about it, because I'm like, oh, we're not having sex as much as other people would, when really I don't think a lot of people have a lot of sex. I think when you're in a long-term relationship, things change compared to the beginning of the relationship, because things definitely changed with us. When we first started doing sexual things, because obviously we didn't have sex straight away. I was 14, he was 15, and we didn't until we were both 16. And when we started doing sexual things, because we didn't have proper, like, full-on penetration sexual intercourse for about, I don't even know, it was a long time after we started doing stuff. So we did stuff a lot compared to what we do now. I think it's because when you first get in a relationship, when you're young, basically, like when you're young, like what we were, it was a new thing that you never ever did before. So you were like, oh well, we're gonna just do it all the time because this has never happened before and this is a completely new experience, so we did it all the time. Whereas I think when you're with a new partner, when you're a bit older, it's the same kind of sentiment. You're like, oh well, I've never done this with you, so let's do it all the time, and if it's good, just be like, well, let's do it all the time because this feels good. So we definitely did stuff more at the beginning, and when we first had sex we did that a lot as well. I wouldn't say it was like all the time, but it was the kind of thing where when we saw each other, that's what we did. Whereas now we can't exactly do that because we're in a long-term relationship, we live together. If we did sex every time we saw each other, we'd never stop. And I mean, who needs that kind of chafing or pain in their life? That, I mean, if you want to do it all the time, good for you. I wish I could do it all the time, but it's just, it's not happening. It's too painful. So we do it obviously a lot less, and I think as you get in a further long-term relationship, you realize that you don't have to do it all the time to still feel like you're a couple. Because I think when you're younger or when you first start a relationship, you think that's what kind of makes you a couple, like having sex or being intimate, or however you choose to be intimate with your partner. I think that's what like defines you. You'd be like, oh yeah, well, we're having sex all the time, so we're in a great relationship. Whereas I think as it gets more longer term, you get to know that person more, and you know that you're not in that relationship just for the sex. You're in the relationship for the person rather than the sex, if that makes sense. So I think we gradually stopped doing it as much. And then the pain started about 6 months after we started having sex, so that kind of made us slow down. Essentially, we had a reason for it. One thing I want to say about sex in a long-term relationship is that it's completely okay if you feel like you don't want to have sex all the time. If you don't feel the need to jump your partner every time you see them naked, or every time you just see them, or if they're in the mood and you're not into it, like, it doesn't mean that that's not okay. Like, I think people think that for it to be a healthy sex life or a healthy relationship, that you have to like really find that person like irresistible, when I think that's not the case. Like, obviously I find Jack attractive, but it's not a case of he is irresistible every single time I see him, because it just, I don't know, I don't think that's has to be there to make the relationship successful. Like, me and Jack connect on so many different levels that it doesn't matter whether I find him irresistible all the time or we feel the need to have sex all the time. Like, the thing is, when we're in a long-term relationship, I think you don't even think about it. Like, we genuinely don't even think about when we're having sex or when we're gonna have sex or when we should have sex. I think we, in terms of how we are attracted to sex, is that the right word, in terms of our sex drives, we both have quite a low sex drive. Me, I think, comes from issues. Like, I think when we first got together, it was very much I had the high sex drive and we did it a lot because of me. And then when I got the problems, my sex drives went down because I've associated it with the pain. Whereas Jack has a very naturally low sex drive anyway, so he's not like trying to get at it all the time. So we don't even like think about it. It's just when it happens, it happens. And I think that's the best way to think about sex when you're in a long-term relationship, because I think if you think, and oh well, we haven't had it in a week, we should probably have it again, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Like, there's way too much pressure there. You don't need to plan when you have sex, and you don't have to think, oh well, and my friend, she has sex with her partner every day, or she he has sex with his partner like once a week and I don't even do that. Like, you don't need to put that pressure on yourself, because every person is different. Like, everyone is different, and whatever you choose or want to do is completely okay. If you want to have sex every day, that's fine. Like, get yourself away. But if you only want to have sex like once a month, or not even a conscious thing of wanting it, that's the thing with me. I don't even think about I can't tell you right now how often I have sex, because we don't think about it. It's just, if it happens, it happens. So we don't have like a set amount of time or an average amount of times that we do it. Like, 1 month we could do it like, I don't know, like 3-4 times, and then 1 month we could do it like once, and then 1 week we could do it like 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, it varies so much, and that's completely normal and okay. If you want to set up a more regimented kind of like sex schedule, that's fine, but just don't put that much pressure on yourself that you feel like you have to have sex that amount of times. Like, you know, just, I think doing it that way will just result in feeling resentment for sex further down the line, because you're just like, oh well, I've said I'm going to do it 3 times this week and we've only done it once and it's Saturday and I've ate too much and I can't be arsed, and then like just be like, oh well, we need to do it, so you know, we'll just get it over and done with. And that is not anything anyone wants to hear. Do not ever say to yourself or say to your partner, let's just get it over and done with. That's not what sex is about. Like, sex is about enjoyment and pleasure and fun. If you feel like you're not into it and you just can't be asked, just don't do it. Like, if you treat it like that, where you're just gonna do it no matter what, it's probably not going to be the best down the line. And that goes for whether you're in it or you're thinking about it. Like, if you start getting into it with your partner and you just like, you know what, I really can't be asked, you have the right to say, babe, I can't be asked, can we just not bother? And have that conversation. Don't feel like you have to go through with it because you're kind of like on your way to it. Just because you're in a long-term relationship doesn't mean that you don't have the right to say no at any point, at any time, with any partner. You always have the right to change your mind or say no to begin with, and that doesn't change when you're in a long-term relationship. I actually think it's way more important, and it should be something that your partner understands. And if they don't, you need to have a conversation about that. If they make you feel guilty about changing your mind or going halfway through and being like, nah, I can't be arsed, and they make you feel guilty about that, that's something you need to address, because you should always feel comfortable enough, especially in a long-term relationship, to be like, no, like, this is just not happening right now. And it's really important that you don't feel guilty for like every occurrence. That's what I mean when I say it's important for a long-term relationship, because you don't want to think, oh well, when we have sex like next week, I don't want him to think that like he's gonna be like picky if you stop. You want to feel comfortable at any point, any time, to just be like, nah, let's just not bother. And that's happened before. Like, that's happened with me and Jack before. I've just been like, no, it's not working tonight, let's just call it a day. And he's very understanding of that, and I'd be very understanding if it was the other way around. I think it's very normal for the other person to just be like, oh, I was feeling it. But that's different to being like, oh come on, like I'm all hot and bothered now. Like, don't make that person feel guilty, because it'll just make the other person like not dread sex, but it'll stay in their mind, and it'll make them feel like they can't like initiate something just in case they change them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just don't make anyone feel guilty for changing their mind at any point. And that goes for anyone, not just long-term relationships. Another thing that I want to say is something that I don't think a lot of people will think about, but it's about kind of like spicing things up in the bedroom. Now, I know that me and Jack have only been together for like 9 years, so we've probably only been doing, what would that be, we've only been doing stuff for like, what, 5 to 6 years? I don't know the maths, I could be completely wrong there, but I know this feels like it doesn't count because I've only been with my partner for a short amount of time. But one thing I kind of want to say is that if you're happy with your sex life, you don't have to change anything about it. Because I think there's this like myth or pressure that when you've been with your partner for a long time, that you are going to get bored and you are going to need to do stuff to spice up your sex life. Whereas if you are happy and you are feeling the pressure to spice things up, like, don't, just for the sake of it, if you're happy, just keep going with what you're going. But the other side's true as well. If you are feeling bored, I don't think there's anything wrong or alarming about that in a long-term relationship. I think it's gonna sometimes happen where you've been with that partner for a long time. Sometimes you are just gonna need to just do something different. I mean, I don't think just because you're bored of your sex life, it means you're bored of your partner. Like, don't get those things confused in your head, because I think I've had a few panicky times when I've thought, I don't want to have sex, that means I don't want to be with Jack. Like, it didn't mean that at all. It just meant that something wasn't right with the sex life. And I think people can sometimes panic about that and be like, I shouldn't be with that person because I just don't want to have sex. And it doesn't mean that. It just means that sometimes you need to experiment with each other, see what the other person is up for doing, and then just giving it a try together. It's kind of like a trying a new thing, like, you know, when people go out on dates and try something they've never ever done before. It's the same kind of thing with sex. You're doing it both together. I mean, you can do it apart as well. That's the thing, like, don't just think that if you're bored with your sex life that you have to do everything with your partner. You can experiment on your own, like try different toys with yourself, try and see what arouses you the most. So even if you've been with your partner for a long time and you know what arouses you, and then suddenly you're bored with the sex life, that might not mean that the sex has gotten bad. It could just mean that you've had, your tastes have changed. So, you know, like, watch some things, have a read about, like, see if it's your tastes that have changed in terms of what you're into, and see what turns you on by yourself maybe. Or you can do this with your partner as well, as obviously you can watch things with them, tell each other what like turns you on and what gets you pleasure. Essentially, if you have never tried kind of I don't even know, like say BDSM kind of stuff, that could be something that has come into your head to arouse you. That if you and your partner aren't trying that, if you're not doing anything by yourself either, you're never going to know. So, you know, like, if you don't feel comfortable maybe addressing that with your partner yet, maybe try it by yourself and see if there's something that turns you on by yourself, and then communicate that to your partner, and that could give you some ideas for what you could try together. And that might be something that kind of like invigorates your sex life a little bit. So don't think that just because you don't want to have sex with your partner doesn't mean that you don't want to be with them, because it could just be something in the sex life. Obviously it might be something to do with the partner, but if you know that you love that person and it's just the sex that's the issue, don't panic and really just try and communicate. I think that's one of the main secrets to a good long-term relationship, is being completely open about everything in your sex life. I mean, obviously everything else in the relationship as well. Sex isn't just about, relationships aren't just about the sex, but I think I would never feel uncomfortable saying something to Jack, and I don't think he would feel uncomfortable saying something to me. And I think that's kind of one of the things that keeps us so close and in such a good long-term relationship, is that we would communicate about anything. So I think having that quality in your sex life is also the best thing about it in a long-term relationship. Does that make any sense? Am I talking out my arse? I don't know. I think that's all the things that I really have to say about it. I would love to do another video on this, but I just thought this little quick video would kind of like start the conversation. And if you guys have any questions or comments about this, maybe we could do another video. I have a link in my description box which allows you to send anonymous questions or anonymous comments or anonymous video ideas, and it allows you to submit something without it being like, Clara has commented, please do a video about masturbation. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just allows you to do that. But if you feel comfortable commenting, please do that, because like I say in the other video, this is about trying to break the stigma and being able to talk about sex. So yeah, if you're comfortable, set yourself away. So that is going to finish this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you did enjoy, because it really lets me know that you like the content about sex and I'm not just a rambling woman talking about sex on YouTube. And if you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you here. I'm going to do way more sex content, obviously not all of it, because I don't want this to be a complete sex channel. I'm not trying to like force education down, I just want to talk about it a little bit more. So yes, thank you for watching, chickpeas, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye. Mwah.